All right. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to today's Tri-State SHRM chapter meeting. We certainly appreciate everyone that has joined us. We'll probably have a couple more come in and out as they have their schedules allow, but we're going to go ahead and get started. So just thank you for joining us. We look forward to today's presenter. This meeting today is being recorded, so you'll all receive emails later today with a link on how to view today's session in case you missed something and want to rewatch, or maybe you want to share with a coworker or someone else within your organization or another HR contact to try to maybe encourage somebody you know to join our chapter by showing them what we have to offer with our presentations. Just a couple of updates, really one big update I want to make everybody aware about as a member of Tri-State SHRM Texarkana. The board has been working to review our bylaws the last few months, and we have spent quite a bit of time kind of picking them apart and making sure that they still represent how we operate as a chapter, and making sure that they still reflect kind of a best practice of what SHRM recommends that they look like and how they read. So we'll be approving those, reviewing them and approving them, I imagine, at the next board meeting at the end of this month. And then once the board approves those revised and updated bylaws, we will be bringing those to the attention of the membership to vote on and hopefully approve. We do need a 2/3 approval in order to approve those bylaws and send them to SHRM National for them to sign off and approve. But we will be providing you details on documentation and things that you can kind of compare apples to apples, so you can see what we did, the reasoning behind it. We did not make very many drastic changes by any means. A lot of it was formatting, making it match what SHRM National recommends, kind of better defining some of the roles and responsibilities of the membership and the board members within the chapter. So just trying to really clarify things, bring it up to speed with what SHRM National expects. So no major changes, but still be aware of what we've been working on as a board here lately, and we'll have some material for you to review and make you feel comfortable in your decision on whether you want to approve those changes or not for our chapter. Okay. That is the only major update that I have to provide you. If does anybody else have anything they would like to speak on? Because normally we don't have a lot of time before we present our presenter, or introduce our presenter. But if anything else has anything they would like to mention, I'd be glad to let you do that right now. I will say one last thing, and then I'll turn it over to Brittany to introduce our presenter today. We are getting close to the end of our SHRM certification prep course. We have, is it four students, Steve?
We have five, actually five total. Yeah.
5 students. Steve is the course instructor, and I help him along with that process, and they're making really good progress. So hopefully we'll have 5 new SHRM certified individuals within the coming months, and just wanted to kind of update y'all on that. We had a good class, and continue to point people in our direction that you think may be interested in obtaining their SHRM certification, whether that be one of you or somebody else within our chapter, or just somebody that is maybe thinking about getting involved in HR, or somebody that serves in an HR function, but that's not a member of our chapter. So please point them in our direction, point them to our website, and let's get them on the right path to maybe join our chapter and or start working towards their SHRM certification. Okay. All right. I'm going to turn it over to Brittany Yeldell for her to introduce our presenter today, because they have a pretty close connection. So I feel like if anybody could introduce him properly, it would be Brittany. So Brittany, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Yeah. So like JW just said, The presenter today is my dad. So I feel like I know him pretty well, and I'm proud to introduce him today. I'm excited for you guys to get to hear from him. So my dad was born in Northeast Arkansas and earned his bachelor's degree from Arkansas State University. After that, he and my mom owned and operated several steakhouses in several states, and ended up selling those businesses in 1999. We moved to Texarkana in that same year, and he began his career with Edward Jones in 1999 and 2000 as a financial advisor. So he has spent 20 plus years in this industry, educating and guiding his clients to plan for and achieve their goals of education, retirement savings, and retirement income and wealth transfer. He and my mom, Pam, have been married for 41 years, and I am one of 3 children, and he has 3 grandchildren from my sister and brother, and he's actively involved in our church and serves as an elder and has been a board member for 15 years there. I'd also like to mention that he was recently voted Best Investment Advisor in Alt Magazine's 2021 Reader's Choice Awards. So I think he's very qualified to give us his presentation today. So I'm happy to introduce him, and I'm excited for you guys to hear from him. Dad, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, that was a very formal introduction, Brittany. I kind of expected you maybe to get a little more sentimental there and maybe enumerate all the reasons why you love me so much or something like that. That's okay. Well, anyway, I'm glad to speak with you folks. Glad to be with you today. I'm going to maybe be a little technologically challenged in that I'm going to toggle between the Zoom and all the commands that are on that screen, and then a little PowerPoint type thing too, toggling between the 2 of those. And then I'm going to also have lunch while I'm talking. I've got a plate of ribs and a salad here. I'm going to try to do that. That's a joke, just a little joke there. Anyway, well, I'm going to tell you what I do, how it pertains, I think, maybe a cross section in terms of topic to what you do, and mostly as it would pertain to 401k plans. I don't know that everybody on this call has that available where you work, but if you do, I want what I do to correspond with what you do in regards to the people you influence, to the degree you're able to do it. Sometimes you're limited as to the advice you give, and you're limited as to the scope of what you're allowed to encourage your employees to do. But if it doesn't totally line up, I think it would be useful for you. I do a lot of speaking to not only groups like yours, but also to groups of financial advisors. I just did one for all of Northeast Arkansas a few weeks ago. I've done them in Oklahoma, where and just by virtue of the fact that I've been around a long time, I speak to those groups, and a lot of the advice that I give those people has to do with them. We're not always the best practicers or practitioners of the things we espouse, the things that we recommend. A lot of our people in my industry don't have their own financial house in order. But I want to talk to you about that, about investing, and the 401k opportunities that are available to you, if they are. If not, you can create your own through an IRA. And how it's so important to plan, how it's important to start early. This topic that I'm going to talk to you about is not hard. A lot of people don't familiarize themselves with it, and they're maybe unprepared or unequipped, but they don't have to be. It's not that hard. If I can do it, anybody can. And so what I want to do is familiarize you with the engine, or the mechanism that has to do, that makes your 401k work, makes it so effective over a long period of time. I have people ask me all the time what I think is fixing to happen in the market. What do you think is going to happen with this economy? And I don't know in the interim, but long term, I do know. And or at least I know what it's always done. Something may happen differently one day, and something may drop a bomb on us one day, and all things change. But for the last gazillion years, things have had a repetitive economic cycle-oriented results. And I can tell you how those work, and I'm going to tell you the mechanism available to most of you in a 401k that makes it happen. Again, I don't expect you to relay what I'm going to tell. to the people you influence. I'm not going to expect you to relay that to them in specifics, but a general idea of why they should plan and get started. And I think you would do your employees a tremendous service. You would do your family a tremendous service if you were to adhere and do this. Most people we find, is, by the way, I'm going to be drawing on the screen in a minute, so I'm a little closer to the screen than I want to be. But most people are woefully unprepared for retirement. They're financially not ready. And there is a disconnect. This is more of a philosophical thing, but there's a disconnect a lot of times with present behavior. And then there's what turns out to be an unrealistic expectation of how things are going to be in the future. I don't know if it's a character thing. Sometimes people have an inability to say no to themselves. They can't delay gratification. They have never learned to pay themselves first. They get their income and they give it away to everybody else. We in the United States, and there was an occasion where this specifically happened, where they decided to deduct your federal taxes from your paycheck. Used to, you would have to send them in, but they thought, if we can go ahead and deduct that, people will they'll come to think that it's not their money. It's just automatic. And if people would treat themselves the same way, it is your money, by the way, it is your taxes you're sending in. And the government knows that if they had to have you save up for that and pay it every year, they'd never get half of it. So they take it on the front end. If you could get yourself or your employees to treat themselves that way, to pay themselves first, even if you think, well, some people just can't do it. Some people can't afford it. Some people barely get by. And I understand that. And I've been one of those people. But if I'll tell people, I operate 401k plans also. And I'll tell the people that I advise, make it a goal, work yourself into a position that you defer some of that money, pay yourself, learn to live without it like you do your taxes. And then your employer may, in some cases, not all of them do, will match that, and you'll get some free money put in with that. And I'm going to tell you why that's so powerful over time. Some people spend a lot on things they can barely afford. Nowadays, easier than ever, we let not prescriptions, but subscriptions pile up on our credit card bill. We're paying Amazon, we're paying Netflix. I've got a thing on mine where I get a car wash, unlimited car wash. There are things that can add up over time that eat away at our income. Some people have, talking a little fast here, but some people have an attitude toward retirement in two ways that are characterized by disparity. One, they're pessimistic and they say, no matter what I do, I'm never going to have enough, so I might as well spend what I got. And then other people are optimistic as though things are going to turn out okay when they've made no plans for them to turn out okay. They haven't done anything. Some people have an attitude of one day when my ship comes in, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to be able to afford this, or one day but they're not launching any ships. They're not sending any out, and they're not coming back in. So we're not asking people to buy a vacuum cleaner from us. We're asking them to feather their own nest, to prepare for the future, because I was 25 that long ago, and I'm 60 now. It does come around, and we have to be prepared for it. So we take personal inventory of ourselves. We decide, can we go ahead and start planning for this? And the degree to which you can do it earlier, I'm going to show you in just a minute how that matters a lot too. I'm going to show you how the mechanism in your 401k works. And when I do, if you'll listen closely, you're going to know more than 90% of the people walking the street about investing. You'll know more than they do. It's not that hard. A lot of people just haven't, again, like I said a while ago, been exposed to it. The 401k plan is a paragraph or a subsection of the U.S. tax code. It's a paragraph, 401k, that's the paragraph. And it allows for you under different plan documents. They let you customize some of it, but some of it falls within hard and fast rules. They let you defer some of the income that you make into a savings plan for yourself, where you can defer taxes on that until you actually take it out and spend it. And so where does that money go? Now, here's where I'm going to try to share my content, my screen. Forgive me if I mess that up. Start my broadcast in 3, 2, 1. Okay. Can somebody just tell me that they can see that?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, good. Good. I thought, oh no, what if I'm not even hooked up to these people? That would be bad. All that talking for nothing.
I had myself muted. I tried to answer you, Larry. And
Okay. Yeah, muting's good, except for when I tell a joke. And then I don't hear anybody laughing. So I have to imagine that everybody's just rolling in their chairs over there.
right.
But I'm not getting anything. This is an odd thing for me. Usually there's a crowd. I had to speak at my church last May, and I spoke from the pulpit to an auditorium where there was not one person sitting in there. And I had to act as though they were all listening. So it was kind of this is kind of an odd thing for me. Usually have a whiteboard and there are people in the room. So, but anyway, when you're investing, just investing in general, whether you have your own brokerage account or whether you have a 401k or whatever, there are two categories. There's loan and there's own. Okay. Loanership investments are kind of the same. You give your money to someone for a little while, for a period of time. That time expires, they give you your money back, and you get interest. Okay. There's not really growth there. They're just kind of, you've heard of people living off their interest. And we would just have a couple of examples of each of these. But CDs, most people know what they are. You don't make much. You don't make anything hardly now on them. But during certain interest rate climates, you'll make some interest during that time period. And at the end of that time period, and bonds below that, that is if a city wants to put a new school district in, or a new sewer system, or the Dallas Cowboys want to build a new stadium, they will raise money by issuing essentially IOUs to the public. You'll loan your money to the Cowboys and or loan your money to the city, and they'll pay you interest over that period of time. Okay, so those are all kind of the same. They're all the same in essence. Ownership investments, those are riskier. On loanership, on the loans, if the bank can't, if they're going to pay you 2% on your CD and they can't make 2%, they got to pay it anyway. The risk is the bank's, it's not yours for the most part. Ownership investments, that is your risk. Okay, you go ahead.
He said they're going to email you some information. Be back with that. As soon as you get it, let me know. Okay, let's look at it. I'm betting that theirs has what you need to. Okay, that it has.
That happens on our stuff too. Anyway.
All right.
All right. So on ownership investments, you buy it to sell it for a profit later. You buy it for the most part to sell it at a profit. So real estate could fall in that category. That's not what we deal with here at Edward Jones. That's not what you would deal with in your 401ks for the most part, but it's that same type of thing. Stocks, and that's what we're going to talk about a lot. Stocks, when you buy that, you own the company. If you started your own company, most of the time it would fail statistically nationwide. It wouldn't make it most of the time. But you can, through a publicly traded company, buy a piece of Walmart, and you'll have a little bitty piece of every Walmart and Sam's out there. You can buy a little piece of Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, Campbell Soup, Johnson & Johnson. These companies that have already made it, there's not really too much of a risk of them going under. You can buy a piece of that and share in the prosperity of these companies over time. So, for instance, if a Big Mac goes to $10 a burger one day, if that were to happen, I want to own McDonald's stock. I want to own that. If it costs me $25 to overnight a package at FedEx, I want to own FedEx. There is an inflationary thing that happens over time. You see it in your whole life. You see it when you go out to eat. I can't take my family out now without spending $100. I paid more for my last truck than I did the last 2 houses I bought. Okay, 2 houses, 1 truck. There was a time that no one would have thought about that. There was a time no one would have spent $50,000 on a vehicle. Okay. Things get more expensive. When I graduated high school, a new Corvette was $10,000. Okay, I don't know what they're 80 now, probably. Okay, I want to own GM stock. Okay, I want to own Coca-Cola. I want to own these companies. Okay, I participate in the inflationary bias to the upside of our economy. If you just sit there on your dollars, if you just hold that cash, because I'm scared of that market, if you do that, then your dollars buy less and less and less over time. So while CDs and bonds, those are all kind of the same, stocks are really different. There's a lot of different kinds. You can have a company like Coca-Cola, who is everywhere. One of our hobbies, my family, we travel a lot. We go to a lot of places. I've been a lot of places in the world, never been anywhere where I couldn't buy a Coke. I've been in Africa in the middle of the jungle. I can buy a Coke. You can buy them everywhere. So those companies are a little bit more stable over time. As a matter of fact, if you had a growth graph, I'm hoping you can see this, their growth might look like this. Oh, goodness, here, hang on a second. I got to get my pencil working. There you go. Their growth graph might look like this. Not a lot of ups and downs, but it kind of goes this way. It's kind of a gentle inflationary move, okay? Now, if you have a company like Home Depot used to be, okay, Home Depot, when I first moved here, was building a new store every 3 days. Okay, that's more of a growth company. They were still building, they're still growing. Their graph might look like this, a little steeper incline, but a bumpier ride along the way. Okay, see how these companies would be different. When Amazon.com first came out, they looked like this, really steep, but it took them forever to make a profit. So you've got this bumpy ride. You don't want this for older people, okay? Because they may put their money in here, they need their money here, and it's not worth as much. But over time, if you're young, you get a steep increase if you've got time. For the most, these are all generalities, by the way. Okay, so you've got stocks, different kinds of stocks, and you use them to keep you from being hurt by inflation over time. They've always worked in the long term. Short term, we have a lot of scary times in the middle. So if I were to convince you of that, if you were to say to me, Larry, okay, I'm in. I agree. I do need some stocks. Which ones do I buy? Which ones do I get? Okay, there's 3,671 publicly traded companies in the United States now. Okay, 45,000 in the world. What do you pick? Which ones are you going to pick? Well, not only do you pick them, when do you get rid of them? You've had them for a while. When do you get rid of these stocks? Well, in your 401k, what you have are selections, and this, listen really closely, selections of buckets of stocks. And mutual funds are the component in your 401k that you have an option to purchase. So you have a bucket here, and a company will come in and they'll put maybe 200 stocks in this bucket. And each of your selections in your 401k that you can choose is a bucket. It's a mutual fund, but let's just call it a bucket. And there's a team of people that are really smart and they're really motivated. I've met some of them. They can't tie their own shoes, but they know how to do this. They spend $160 million a year, one company I know, in research. And all they do is put together a bucket of stocks that they think is going to make a lot of money. That's all they do. That's their life. You would hate their life. It's pressure packed. They look at this stuff every day and they're judged based on their 5-year rating, 10-year rating. What is your returns over this period of time? How do you compare to your peer group? They work hard and they want to do good. And you come along and you buy a little piece of that bucket. You're just going to buy that much. You have a little. So if you've got that much, you've got a little piece of McDonald's. You got a little piece of Federal Express. You got a little bitty piece of some foreign company you've never heard of. And all this group of people do is they put good companies in, and let's say McDonald's gets a food poisoning scare, they'll kick them out. Okay. They put good companies in, they kick the bad ones out. Then McDonald's gets down to $5 a share, they'll put them back in. Okay. They run the bucket. And then you can just look at all the people that do this in your 401k and say, which bucket of 200 stocks do I need? Now, one of the rules of owning stocks is that you diversify. You don't have all your eggs in Walmart. You don't have all your eggs in Exxon. Okay. You diversify. What if you just bought this one bucket in your 401k? You'd have 200 different companies, and it's being managed by a group of people that know what they're doing. You don't know what you're doing about it. I don't, but they do. And so this 200, this is where the dynamics of and what makes wealth building in a 401k so powerful. Okay. This week, I had a guy roll over $1 million out of his 401k, had his wife roll over 1.2. Okay. Because they've been working there for a long time and they've been disciplined. They've denied themselves the ability to spend every dollar they've got, and they put money away. And they've done it through these buckets or these mutual funds that are available in a 401k. And if you don't have it, again, you can do your own. You can buy your own through a brokerage firm. So this bucket that we're talking about has a spout on it. We're going to pretend. Okay. And out of that spout, you own a share, you own a little bit of all these companies. Out of that spout comes the earnings of these companies. Okay. That's capital gains, dividends, interest, whatever Coca-Cola, all these companies make, you get your share because you own some of it. We get that. That's supposed to be a dollar sign there. We get that and we put it back in the bucket. And it buys more shares that produce more money that we put back in to buy more shares. And there's a compounding effect over the time that is so powerful over time. Day to day, you don't even notice. It's very boring. And exciting here, when they defer money out of your paycheck, that goes in the bucket too. So you've got shares that compound on themselves, and that corresponds with extra money that you've got going in this bucket. It's a powerful wealth building practice if you will get in on it. Okay. Your goal, by the way, is going to be to get a lot of shares. I know if you've been in a 401k for a while, you've experienced a time where you put money in and you had less than you did before, or you'd go even maybe a whole year or two where things were just lousy, kept putting money in and it didn't work. But what you are doing is you're buying more shares. Okay. And that's your goal. Buy a lot of shares, get a lot of shares. And we're going to see in a little bit that the share price has never failed to recover. Okay. So the market, let's just look at this as market fluctuation. You've heard of bull markets and bear markets. Bull markets are when the market goes up, bear markets when they go down. And so this is going to represent, excuse me, let me get a drink here. I'm trying to look in the camera and I'm assuming that it just dawned on me that most of you can't see me now anyway. I don't know. But anyway, so this squiggly line represents the fluctuation of the market over your investment life. Okay, up and down, up and down, up and down. The vacillation of this market is a benefit to you over time. We're going to pretend like each vertical red line that I'm drawing here represents a deferral out of your paycheck. Okay, they've taken money out of your check and it goes into that 401k every time. The ups and downs of the market serve to make you a better investor. Like you're real smart. It's like you're real smart. Like you're a shrewd investor and you know how to play this market. You don't. You're just putting money in every month. But if I'm going to change colors here. If your check intersects the market right here, it's as though you're saying, you know, the shares are a little expensive this month. I'm not going to buy very many. I'm just going to buy a few. Well, you're not making that decision. The market's so expensive, your check doesn't buy, your deferral doesn't buy that much. But then later on, when the market is down and your money intersects, it's as though you're saying, you know, this market sure is cheap right now. I'm going to pick me up a few shares. I'm going to get extra shares. It's so cheap. Okay. If you'll do that and go through your investment lifetime by buying less shares when they're expensive and more shares when they're cheap, you will, over the course of your life, pay less than the average price per share for all of the shares you own. And remember, that's the goal. If the market tanks, they don't take away your shares. They're just not worth as much on that particular day. Okay. Hope this is making sense as we're going along. So fortunately for us, the market doesn't look like that. It looks like this. The market is like a person playing with a yo-yo walking up the stairs. Okay, so our over time, the price of investments go up. They always have. What happens is that the market sets an all-time high, it falls down, scares everybody to death, sets a new high. Falls down. This is different this time. Nobody's ever seen anything like this before. We had a bad election. We've got a COVID pandemic. The Twin Towers fell down. We had the subprime mortgage lending rate crisis. All new high. Scared to death, new high. In our history, don't ever forget what I'm going to tell you. This will give you the encouragement and the conviction to encourage your employees to plan and use this benefit that your company offers. You've had 34 major bear markets in our history where the market goes down and scares everybody to death. We've had 34 record-setting all-time high recoveries. We're undefeated. We're undefeated. Okay. The share price, and that's again, get a lot of shares because the share price has never failed to recover. Here, I'm going to show you how in favor of you, the stock market is stacked. The odds are stacked in your favor. The average bear market, okay, lasts 11 months. The average bull market lasts 28 months. Okay. The average bear market is down 26%. That is a time, ladies and gentlemen, when my phone is ringing off the hook. The average bull market or the up market is plus 76%. So what do you do when this market drops? You just pick up more shares and you wait it out because you don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know when the market's going up. You don't know when it's going down. But we do know this, that 3 out of 4 years, it's in our favor. So we just take it. And hanging on to your stuff or buying more when it's down has always served people well. Never feels like it. It feels terrible when it's happening. But again, there's an inflationary bias to the upside. Okay, getting toward the end of this, I think, we have some questions later. There is something called the rule of 72. Okay, so we know how this works. Okay, we know that we have never failed to recover from a bear market, that there's an inflationary bias to the upside on the market as a whole, and that we let that be managed by people here that know what they're doing. And just by virtue of being in the 401k, you're diversified. You got if you have 5 buckets in your portfolio, in your 401k, you got 1,000 companies that you own. You can't walk in those companies and start firing people, but you do own some of it. So the rule of 72, this is not a hard, fast rule, but mathematically it's pretty close. And that is that you get the interest rate or the return on your investment and you divide it into 72. Divide it into 72, and that should be how long it takes you to double your money. Okay. So for instance, if you were making 6% on your money, you divide that into 72, it would take you 12 years to double. If you didn't add any more money to it, okay, if you just left it alone, you're making 6%, in 12 years, it'll double. Conversely, if you're making 12% on your money and you put that into 72, it'll double in 6 years. Okay, so the faster it doubles, obviously, the more return on your investment you're making. So we're going to pretend, that you're making, and this is about the historical average, is about 10 point something on the S&P 500 or on your investments. Let's just say you're making 10 on your investments, and I use 10 because it's a little easier to do the math. So you should double your money roughly every 10 years. I'm sorry. Let me back up. We're making 10% on our money in this pretend scenario. It should double every 7 years. So you'll see the age here at the top. You're 21, you're 28, you're 35, on up to, you're going to retire at 63. So if you were to, in your 401k, all these are ifs, okay, And we also presume that the market will grow the same rate it always has. But just for this example, you're 21 and let's say you've got 10,000. You've managed somehow to have 10,000 in your 401k by the time you're 21. If you do nothing, now listen, don't forget, we're going to be dropping money into this the whole time. Till you're 63, you're not just putting 10,000 in and walking away. You're going to be feeding this the whole time. But if you did not, if all you ever had was 10,000 in it when you were 21, when you're 28, it's 20,000. When you're 35, it's 40. When you're 42, it's 80. When you're 49, it's 160. When you're 56, it's 320. And you get ready to retire at 63, and you've got about 640,000 just by compounding with an average rate of return of 10%, starting with just 10,000. This graph is emblematic of, or it depicts the cost of waiting. A lot of people wait and they think they're going to do that later, and they think that they'll catch up or whatever. Let me tell you, when you wait from 21 to 28, if you wait this 7 years right here, you're not losing this money. You're losing the last double you had. You're losing this double, and that's a real expensive mistake to make. Now, I'm not doing that to discourage somebody that has not started yet, or they may be middle age and they just say, hey, we do what you can, because you'll benefit by the new contributions as well as the compounding effect over time. But I would encourage you, if you're not doing it, I mean, we all need this advice, but encourage the people you influence to participate in the benefit that your company offers, if they offer this. I told you earlier, I speak to a lot of people in this industry, and I give them the courage of their convictions. Because sometimes when you're in the middle of a bear market and you're advising someone who has given you their life's work, in other words, they rolled their 401k over into an IRA with me, and I'm going to manage their retirement. I'm going to manage their wealth. I'm going to manage the wealth transfer to the next generation. But when they hand me that check, they're saying, hang on just a second. Let's see. Okay. When they hand me that check, they're saying, hey, this is my life's work. I've worked my whole life for this. Do not mess this up. And you swallow hard, because it's a very weighty thing. It's a big deal. And so sometimes when they do that and the market does drop and they're down 100,000 or 200,000, and I have to remember that my long-term advice has never been wrong, ever. Now, it could be one day. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what that's, but I know that for the last gazillion years, the market has always recovered. And I'm as sure that the market will recover as I'm sure that the price of everything else in your life is going to go up. The price of cars are going to go up. The price of long-term care, housing, groceries, restaurants. If I had to convince you that those prices are going to increase, you would believe me. You wouldn't have a hard time at all with it. But if I say the price of your stocks are going to go up too, same thing. Stocks go up also. The price of your, except we own these. We want to own them. We own those companies. If it costs you $100 again pretty soon to fill your gas tank up, we own Exxon. I participate. Okay. So I would encourage, and I encourage the other financial advisors, because when those people are hurting, sometimes it's a hard thing to go through. And you say to those people, hey, what I've told you is true. I have to remind you why we invested in the first place. And so people that are new in the business, until recently, until last year, during COVID, most people, financial advisors in the country, had never been through a bear market. They'd never seen one. They'd never held someone's hand through all that stuff. So I had to tell them, hey, this day's coming. In your career, it's coming. And it did. So I had to call them. I was invited to speak and say, hey, your advice is still right. It's still the truth. Okay. It just doesn't feel like it. This is what buying low feels like. You want to buy low and sell high, buying low feels terrible. Well, now market's back at record highs, essentially, and everybody's all happy again. But you have to remember as you're doing this, that your encouragement to the people in your sphere of influence to participate is still a good choice to make. I'm tired of talking, tired of hearing myself talk. But anyway, I appreciate you letting me weigh in on that. That's a lot of talking. I hope I wasn't disconnected that whole time. And if you have any questions or if that's appropriate, whatever, I'm glad to hang around.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. Just a couple things. I think it's great, for what you just did with a fairly basic explanation of how the process works, because yeah, a lot of, your average person really doesn't understand the nuances of the market and how it all works. And so, yeah, they get scared when things get low. And I think it's good for us as HR professionals to be able to at least understand the basic concepts of it, because who do a lot of our employees come to?
That's right.
Talk about those things. They come to their HR representative, and if we don't know anything, then that doesn't seem very comforting to them. So if we can at least provide them with some basic knowledge, and then obviously direct them to somebody that does it for a living is great. And then as well, for those small businesses where, for those of you that are HR professionals in a very small business that doesn't offer any kind of 401k or savings like this, hopefully it enlightens you a little bit as to what your company could offer if you're able to do it, and get you pointed in the right direction. So I appreciate that, Larry.
I appreciate you having me. Thanks.
Yeah, I just want to echo what you're saying, JW. Larry, thank you for doing this. This is really helpful. And just like you speak to other financial advisors, I think this is really helpful for us as HR professionals. I thought the graphics you used were very, illustrative of what is involved. And sometimes we get a little too caught up in not making the message simple enough. And it's really difficult for, a number of the hourly employees that I dealt with as in my own company to help them understand how important it is to set some money aside. I know you got kids, I know you got, obligations and lots of responsibilities being married or whatever. But you've got to be willing to set a little bit aside every single paycheck. Otherwise, you get to be my age. I'm 66 now. I wouldn't have anything in my savings if I took the approach that I'm going to spend and not save anything. So thank you for what you do for a living, and I think this is really pertinent. I think this is the first one like this. The first program, JW and Brittany, that we've had along this line. So this is really helpful, and really appreciate you, Larry, doing this today.
Very kind of you. Thank you.
Obviously, Brittany gets her good looks from her mother, though, it appears to me.
Yeah. As though you're the first person to say that to me.
I do have a question that's coming on the chat, Mr. Jones, and that is about cryptocurrency and how that all plays into the stock market. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, you know what? I honestly, I'm not very, we don't deal in it, and we don't, Warren Buffett said about precious metals one time about gold. He said, and there are investment types of stocks this way too, momentum type things where there's the underlying worth is not really there. You only would buy it because it's called the greater fool theory. You would only buy it because somebody will pay you more for it later. It inherent in itself, it has no worth. And he used gold for that. He said, when we have a big crisis, people aren't going around looking for jewelry. They're looking for food. They're looking for other stuff. And he said, the fact that gold has been a hedge of inflation, he said, I can't get my hands around. He said, I don't know how someone can dig a nugget of gold out of some mine in Africa, take it to Fort Knox, and that's supposed to impact my life. I don't understand that. He said, it doesn't pay a dividend. It's not dynamic. It doesn't hire people. He said, I'm just going to kind of stick to companies. And that's kind of my world too. We can get some precious metals, but I usually don't even lead with that. But cryptocurrency, a lot of people, I don't know enough about it to speak on, other than several people that I listen to are wondering what holds it up, or what the essence of it, the inherent value, and not how much of that is contagion, how much of it is is just enthusiasm and momentum. I don't know. I don't own any of it at all.
Yeah.
It's a good question. Just
That's
not one I'm
That's a
equipped.
good response, because I mean it's still so new that, I mean, time will tell how it impacts the financial markets and our lives moving forward.
Right. There was an instance 100 years ago or more where tulips were that way. There was a tulip. If you can look up on Google, and I'm sure what the search engine, what you need to put in there, but it was the tulip panic of 1850, or I'm making that up, but something like that, where people were mortgaging their farms for tulip bulbs. I mean, they were, and this contagion and this, and it just all collapsed, obviously, and ruined a lot of people. So you'll see evidence of people that get in too late to things, and then you'll see evidence of things that don't have inherent value that are promoted and promulgated among people to inspire enthusiasm and stuff. When you've got to realize, are there earnings? I mean, in my world, does this company earn money? How much debt do they have? There are fundamentals, and most of us don't have the excess money to risk on something that's speculative in the first place. I don't think. But anyway, not an expert in that area.
That's good. I mean, that's a good answer, Phil. Does anybody else have any other comments or questions for Mr. Jones? All right, I'm not seeing anybody unmuting themselves. So, Mr. Jones, we really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us today and share your insights. And maybe we'll have you back again at a point in time, because I can see where this could be a benefit to routinely kind of, every so often retouch on this for newer folks, and just as a good refresher.
Enjoyed it. Be glad to help you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jones. I appreciate every one of you that came today to attend. And again, we will be, as far as our board is concerned, of our chapter, we'll be reviewing the bylaws that we've updated and either approving those or not. And if they are approved by the board, we'll be presenting all the chapter members with the details on what we updated, how we revised things, and give you hopefully a very clear understanding of what you will then vote on, and whether or not to approve the changes that we made, the updates that we made. So I hope that you'll appreciate the work that was put into it. There were several meetings involved, a lot of extra time that goes beyond everybody's just normal work schedule. So thank you all for everything that you do for the chapter, and look forward to seeing you all next month. And just keep an eye out on your email inboxes for updates about the vote on the chapter bylaw revisions. Okay. Thank you all very much, and see y'all next month.
Thanks, JW.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you all.
Take care, everybody.